Alrighty, so we start with Plato. Why? It's philosophy class, we have to. No, just kidding. There's a couple of reasons why. Good reason number one, we have the complete works of Plato. And so, since we have the complete works, we know how everything fits together. Good reason number two, given Plato's location and in Athens at the time, and it was a major port city for much of the world, so he was interacting with ideas and so forth from all over the world, and he wrote in dialogue form, so he was able to actually engage in conversation with them in his writings. Bad reason number one, and really the only bad reason, dead white guy. Unfortunately, philosophy has a bad history of being very white, straight, male focused. It's getting better, but that's the way that it is. And so, especially 2,000 years ago, when Plato was writing, so Plato was writing in the 300s BC, it was the beginnings of Western philosophy. And so Plato then became the blueprint for all Western philosophical discussions to follow, including the discussions of ethics. So there's a distinction between descriptive and prescriptive. Descriptive merely describes what you think you would do in a given situation, or what you have done in a situation, or what you are doing in a situation. Prescriptive then is what you should do in a situation, right? Think of it like going to the doctor. Descriptive is him or her telling you the diagnosis, here's what you have. That doesn't help you get better. The prescriptive, the script, that's what helps you to get better, right? If you do these things. And so all the ethical theorists presume we are ethically sick and trying to get better. Descriptive, ethically sick. Prescriptive, follow this prescription. Plato's prescription, not very good. And I'll talk about why probably next time. His description, though, again, sets the blueprint, okay? Plato says we're not actually ethical. We're all acting ethically. We're all pretending to be ethical because we have a fear of the law and or public opinion. He uses a thought experiment to, he thinks, prove this point, that humanity just sucks. And it's called the ring of Gyges. So imagine there's this ring of power, a ring of invisibility. So when you place it on your finger, you become completely invisible to everyone. There are no ring wraiths like there are in Lord of the Rings. You're invisible to everyone. And if you happen to believe in God, you must imagine you are also invisible from God. No one can see what you are doing. And Plato then asks us to think about, what would you do with that kind of power? You're completely beyond repercussions, beyond consequences. You are free to do whatever you want. And what do you suppose your friends would do with that power? What do you suppose most folks would do with that kind of power? Plato says, and I quote, "No man," he means mankind, not the gender, "no man can be imagined to be of such an iron nature that he would stand fast in justice. No man would keep his hands off what was not his own when he could safely take what he liked out of the market, or go into houses and lie with anyone at his pleasure, or kill or release from prison whom he would, and in all respects be like a god among men." If we were invisible, we would all do horrible, awful, unethical things. Which he thinks proves that none of us actually are ethical. We're just pretending to be ethical. It's a show. Why? Because all men, quoting Plato again, believe in their hearts that injustice is more profitable to the individual than justice. He claims we all know that injustice is better for the individual to perform injustice upon others. That's better for me than to remain fast in justice. And so if I have this power of invisibility, why would I not then do the unjust things? And that demonstrates who I really am. So why don't I? Because of law and public opinion. And so imagine, let's go back in time, and let's say that I am very average. I'm not that smart or strong or fast. I'm just regular, just average. And you are too. And so we are afraid of people who are bigger, stronger, faster, smarter than we are. So you and I enter into an agreement, a covenant, an arrangement, where I will agree not to try to take your stuff, you agree not to try to take my stuff. My hands look really big, that was weird. And there are consequences if one of us breaks this agreement. Ta-da, law arises. And Plato, by the way, I should point out, he does not say that this is the way ethics actually operates. He's saying this is how most people conceive of it. The common understanding of ethics is based upon consequences, which is why if we remove consequences with the ring of invisibility, people would do awful things. I think about what happens during natural disasters. While the police are off helping people, other people are robbing, pillaging, so on and so forth, doing all of the things that they are now free to do because the police aren't there to stop them. They don't have fear of the law. It's as if they are invisible. Or if you're driving on the freeway and no highway patrol are around, how many people choose to exceed the speed limit? It's as if there's no law because there's no one there to enforce the law. It is, of course, only illegal if you get caught. Because all of us, again, are just pretending to be ethical. Right? Plato says that, and he thinks that most people agree. We all know that we suck. So these laws, then, that arise between you and I, beginning as of social contracts. Pardon me if cats get in the way. So there arise these laws and mutual covenants. And there's a cat. Thank you, Athena. I'm out of the way. Thanks. Thanks. Okay. Sorry about that. That was Athena, one of our 3 cats. So there arise these laws and these mutual covenants, and then that which is ordained by law becomes termed by us, regular folk, lawful and just. That which is lawful is not necessarily the same thing as that which is just. But in our minds, most folks combine these two things. So that if it is legal, it must also be ethical. If it is illegal, it must also therefore be unethical. So we think. Obviously, hopefully obviously, there are issues with this, right? Again, most people think this way. When I tell people I teach ethics, they want to talk about the law, to which I say, I don't teach law, I teach ethics. I don't care about the law, I care about ethics. They're 2 different things. They sometimes touch, but they're not the same thing. Most people think that they are, which is why it matters so much what laws get passed. Because if a law passes, right now, suddenly, this thing is now also ethical. If law and ethics are the same thing. But then we can go through the silly laws. It is illegal, almost every municipality across the United States, to carry an ice cream cone around in your back pocket. Do we want to say that's unethical? That that's unjust? Notice the word just, right? When I say justice, in most people's minds, they equate that with the law. That which is just is that which is right, that which is ethical, that which is moral. Notice I didn't say anything about the law. But in most people's minds, they've been combined. In Chicago, it is illegal. And so notice, if law and ethics is the same thing, we're also saying it's unethical to fish while sitting atop a giraffe. If that which is illegal is also unethical, then why did we celebrate Dr. Reverend King? He was a lawbreaker. He wrote a famous letter from jail. He was breaking the law. His point was the laws themselves were unethical. If law and ethics are the same thing, you can't make that claim. But most folks combine those things in their mind as one and the same thing. And Plato is telling us why. Right? This is a compromise. I'm compromising because I'm not big, strong, fast, or smart. And so I give up some of my rights in order to be somewhat more protected from people who are. And there are consequences. Right? So he talks about the ring of Gyges. I've already mentioned that. Later on, he says the universal voice of mankind is always declaring justice and virtue are honorable, but grievous and toilsome. It's hard work. It's much harder to be ethical than it is to be unethical. And so why do we bother? Just because of the laws? No, also public opinion. Vices, same sentence from Plato. The universal voice of mankind, always declaring justice and virtue are honorable, but grievous and toilsome. And that the pleasures of vice and injustice are easy of attainment and are only censured by law and opinion. That's why we have to be invisible, not just from the law, but also from other folks. Because if they feel that they're being something unjust is happening to them, that's the worst of all things. The best of all things from the individual perspective is to perform injustice upon others. That's awesome for me. But to have injustice performed upon me, that's the worst. So I compromise. I won't be unjust to you, and no one else will be unjust to me. And so we settle. It's okay. It's okay. This whole pleasures of vice and injustice then make me think about heroes and villains in movies and literature and plays. Which one would be more fun to be? Usually the villain is way more fun. You can do whatever you want. You have this freedom of invisibility. You have all of the power. A power to be like a god among men. And look at what you might do with it. Or if not you, think about what most folks would do with it. In fact, if you had that kind of power and didn't take advantage of it, Plato says most folks would consider you to be a wretched idiot. You'd be a wretched idiot for not taking advantage, for remaining steadfast in justice when you don't have to. Imagine that, imagine it's, snowy and or icy and cold, and I have to run to the grocery store, right? Now, let's imagine the ice is still falling, it's slippery. I know that when I'm entering the store. The store has done everything they can to clear the walkway to make it as safe as possible, but you can only do so much when the ice is still falling from the sky. I walk quicker than I should, I slip, boom, and fall, and injure myself. Many folks then, regular folks will be like, now's your chance. My chance for what? My chance to take advantage of this situation, especially if there were no cameras around. I have the power of invisibility. Nobody really knows what happened. All we know happened is I slipped and fell on this company's property. I could then sue the company. I could make some money. I could take advantage of this situation. And Plato doesn't bring this up, but if Plato is right about this, then doesn't that explain why we're not at all surprised anymore when powerful people have skeletons in their closet that come out later? It's not at all surprising then that we are afraid of people who are not just bigger, stronger, and faster than us, but smarter than us. Why? Because look at what they could do with that kind of power. We presume people with power will take advantage of it. Why? Because we know we would if we could get away with it. Says Plato. This is how most folks conceive of ethics. It's a matter of what do I get out of it? What benefit is there for me? Well, I'm not in jail, and I'm not looked down upon by public opinion. So I pretend to be ethical when I know people are watching. Think about the flip side of the Ring of Gyges thing, right? So instead of thinking about what you would do if you were invisible, think about the last time you did something ethical and told no one. I hear all the time that people want to be seen and heard. I get that. And so when I see someone doing something unethical, I call it out. I want them to know that they are being seen. But people don't seem to like that. So I talked to my counselor wife and I was like, what's up with that? And she said, no. People don't want to be seen or heard when they're doing something unethical. Ring of Gyges, they want to be invisible. But they do want to be seen and heard when they're doing something ethical. So I don't want to be invisible when I'm doing something good. So says Plato. What are the rewards? What do I get out of it? It's hard work, he says so. Justice and virtue are honorable, but grievous and toilsome. It's hard work. Can I, and he's quoting a poet here, can I by justice or by crooked ways of deceit ascend a loftier tower, which may be a fortress to me all my days? Very next line, that's the end of the poem. Now this is Plato's commentary again. For what men say is this: if I am really just, but not also thought just, profit there is none, but the pain and loss are unmistakable. I should be getting some rewards for being good. Otherwise, why bother being good? Another thought experiment. He says, let's imagine someone who is the best of all humans. They are always doing the most ethical thing. But no one agrees with them. Everyone in their life thinks that they are the worst. And he then asks, how long is that good person going to remain steadfast in justice? Not long. Because again, it's grievous and toilsome, and there's no profit. You're not even getting a pat on the back, you're not even getting a thank you, you're not even getting a well done from anyone. And I know there's some amongst you who are like, no, I'd remain steadfast in justice. Okay, maybe. Let's imagine this scenario instead of ethics. Let's just think about learning an instrument. Let's say you've decided to teach yourself how to play a guitar. And you found a fairly inexpensive guitar somewhere. You're like, why not, right? Maybe it's winter time, it's cold, snowy, you're stuck inside anyway. There's only so many Netflix shows to watch. So you figure, I'm gonna teach myself. So you start watching the YouTube videos, you learn the fingering patterns. I don't play guitar. You start learning some songs. You're taking some time away from other things to do this thing, and you're enjoying it because you feel like you're getting better. You're improving. And maybe even there's sometimes when your friends are like, hey, you want to go do such and such? You're like, I got something else going on, right? And that something else was, you want to take the 15 or 20 minutes to practice your guitar. You're not telling them that yet, but that's what it really was. And so let's fast forward into the future a few months. And there's a couple of songs that you can play pretty well. You're not going on tour, you're not recording, but you can play them pretty well. And so all of the folks that you love and care about you and your life, right, your family and close friends, are all hanging out at your house one day, and you think now's the time, right? I want to share my life with them. And so you're like, hey guys, I know it's not great. Here's something I've been working on. Here's a couple of songs. And so you play your couple of songs, and you feel like that's the best that you've played them so far. And every single one of them tells you how awful it was. Not just not encouraging, but all of them are actively discouraging. Right? Like they're talking about perhaps taking your guitar away so as not to continue to encourage this type of behavior. Nothing but discouragement. Are you really going to play again tomorrow? Even Spider-Man. Okay? Spider-Man is fraught with doubt all the time, right? Part of it has to do with the time period in which the character was created, the mid-60s, and all that was going on in this country in the 60s, generation gaps and all of that. Part of it is his age when he got bit by the spider. Across most versions, he's an already awkward teenager who now is even more awkward because he has this special power thing that he didn't even ask for. So he's trying to figure out who it is that he wants to be. And you can see Peter Parker, the original. You can look at Miles Morales. In some ways, Spider-Gwen, right? So all of these characters are trying to figure out, okay, what's it mean to be not just Spider-Man, but also Peter Parker, Miles Morales, all of those characters, right? And so they're doing these things, they're not sure, like, well, maybe I did the right thing this time, maybe I didn't. Even in hindsight, they're not sure. There's only been one canonical decision that Spider-Man has known for sure, and that one he knows he got wrong. He let the criminal go free and ended up killing Uncle Ben. It's the Peter Parker version. The other versions have a similar situation. Every other decision's like, I don't know, maybe. In the midst of all that, there's a J. Jonah Jameson character who's continuing to plant the seeds of doubt, telling the neighborhood how awful Spider-Man is. He's the worst. He's terrible. He's horrible. In Spider-Gwen's universe, it's her own dad, the cop, who considers Spider-Gwen to be a criminal rather than a hero because he presumes that her actions led to the death of the Peter Parker of that universe. I'm getting super geeky, sorry. I presume Spider-Man is pop culture enough I can make references to Spider-Man. And then, Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales is a little more on the geeky side. But anyway, point being, there's a character who's like, nope, that spider is the worst. They're not good. And that continues to weigh upon this spider character. And so almost every issue, almost every movie, almost every instance of Spider-Man, there is a panel, there is a scene, a seemingly random, seemingly unimportant scene or panel where Spider-Man has done something, he's stopped the criminal, and the random butcher has said thank you. Or the random hot dog vendor, thank you. I must be hungry, I'm thinking about hot dogs and meat, even though I'm primarily a vegetarian, but whatever. There's a random citizen who says thank you. That's the word of encouragement that Spider-Man needs to continue, because he has someone saying thanks. Someone in this world of public opinion recognizing that what he's doing is good, which then runs counter to this J. Jonah Jameson voice, the voice that is attempting to convince everyone else that he is not indeed the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but instead something much more nefarious and awful. The playing guitar example changes everything if just one person says, you know, I actually kind of liked it. You know, you're right, that actually was pretty good for somebody who's never played before. It just takes one person. Even the folks that you hear about, Michael Jordan, his dad was a strong supporter of his. Kobe Bryant, he had people. Everyone, Kanye West had his mama. Everybody who has been successful, and we'll talk more about success probably next time. Everyone who's been successful, even if they're trying to prove the haters wrong, the haters isn't everybody else. Plato's example, everybody else. Everyone thinks you are the worst. At some point, wouldn't you start to question, be like, maybe I am. Maybe I should change. And remember, if you happen to be a religious person, you may be thinking of someone like Jesus as I'm telling the story. Jesus had people who supported him, the disciples, his mother, so on and so forth. It's not as if everyone was against him. Many were, but not everyone. Like Jordan, like Kobe. Many, but not everyone. He's saying everyone. And then what? Because you're getting the grievous, you're getting the toilsome, and you're not getting any of the profit. You're getting actually even more grievous, some and more toil. Because everyone is against you. You're really going to stand fast in justice? I don't know. I don't know. And so I want you to consider, is Plato right that most people conceive of ethics in this way? That it's a, what do I get out of it? It's about the consequences, about the results. Right? Even religiously inclined folks, right? If you're going to say something like, well, I do the right thing because God is watching. Okay, notice then you don't have the power of invisibility. You don't have the ring. And there will be some types of rewards or mansions or streets paved with gold or any of those things. That's still a consequence. Right? That's still based upon results. Plato says most people conceive of it that way, but that's not the proper way to conceive of ethics. It's not about results. Because if it's about results, then it becomes about pretending to be ethical. I think it's fascinating. This was over 2,000 years ago. How could he possibly have known that we all have rings of Gyges? If not complete invisibility and anonymity, at least perceived anonymity and invisibility. And look at what people do with it. Cyberbullying, identity theft. But of course, there are also people who donate anonymously. Okay. Are they doing it perceiving themselves to be invisible? Do they honestly tell no one about it? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So one, do we think Plato is right? This is how most people conceive of it. Or most of the time, all of us are just pretending. And secondly, do we think that that's bad? Perhaps it is a strength that this is how most people conceive of it, that we are just pretending, and that's okay. That's how we function in a society. Maybe. Although it is based on fear, but whatever, it's fine. It's also interesting to point out that most stories and so forth that involve the power of invisibility, that invisibility is used for not great things. Think about Harry Potter, right? You have the map, right? That you do solemnly swear you're up to no good. And then invisible things become revealed, secret passages and whatnot. He has not a ring, but a cloak of invisibility. And he uses it to do what? Right? I challenge you also to think about what types of things would you do with that kind of power? honestly, right? You're not gonna have to answer to anybody but yourself. Part of this class is about self-reflection. What do you honestly think you would do? The first 5 to 10 things with the power of invisibility, the power to be like a god among men. Would you be benevolent or malevolent? See you next time.